Hey, everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. Hope you're having a good day out there. So, as we know, Biden's about to take office, and there recently was a big push for force the vote, right? Force the vote on Medicare for all, force Congress to actually stand up and either declare that they were supporting Medicare for all or declare they were against us having health care. And as we know, Congress basically failed to stand up on that front. Even the squad failed to put any pressure on Nancy Pelosi for that vote. I think that there is another way to get Medicare for all. There is another way to get this country health care. And it could happen on day one when Biden gets into office. Now, right now, that will not be happening. But I want to let you know there is a way. There is a way that even without Congress, because they have proven, Congress has proven what they are. They've proven they're corrupt. They've proven they're a swamp, but a swamp filled with like diarrhea, like just awful diarrhea swamp. They've proven that. And so it's time to do it without Congress. And there is actually a way to provide health care for all Americans without even congressional approval. I probably don't need to tell you why we all need healthcare and why it's ridiculous that we don't have healthcare, especially in the middle of a pandemic. The only developed country without fucking single payer healthcare. How incredible is that? Why don't we join the fucking modern world? I mean, it's like if we were the only one without pants. I mean, the whole rest of the developed world has pants, and we were like, yeah, one day we're gonna get there. We're gonna figure out how to cover ourselves from the waist down. But for now, yeah, we're the only ones, no pants. I mean, is that any crazier than having a for-profit healthcare system that destroys millions of lives every year, especially in the middle of a pandemic? In the pandemic, as some of you may be aware, 15 million, I mean, those are the latest numbers. I assume it's more than that by now, but 15 million people have lost their employer-based health care during this pandemic. So lives are destroyed even more than ever. And so here is the answer, or at least one answer, as a way that we could have health care if there were enough pressure on Joe Biden to actually do it. Someone is saying they can't hear. Please others chime in and say if you can hear what I'm saying, because hopefully that is just one person that cannot hear the broadcast. Can you hear? Can you hear? I guess I need to keep talking. If I stop talking while I'm saying can you hear it, then that clearly will not do anything. Can you hear me not saying anything? Okay, well, I got at least a few people saying they can hear. Okay, so we'll keep going. So here's the deal. And this was not written by me. This was written by David Dayen at the American Prospect. They often do very good work. David Dayen, a great investigative journalist. And here is the article. This was written back in November, this past November. But through all this force the vote, and there's still a lot of energy for force the vote, even though it didn't work with the Nancy Pelosi speakership, there's still a lot of energy behind that movement for forcing a vote for Medicare for all. So I say, let's take that energy for force the vote and switch it over to force the executive action. I haven't spoken to anyone else about whether this is what they would want to do. So don't act like I'm speaking for all of the force the vote movement. It's just an idea, top of my head. Here we go. So this is the article from back in November. How Biden could give everyone Medicare on his own. And I'll read you a little bit of it. And it's based on before I read some of it, this has actually happened. This has already happened. There are already areas in America where they're just given healthcare. They're given Medicare for all. So the Medicare for all idea already exists, believe it or not. And where does it exist? Libby, Montana. That's right. I know you were going to say Libby, Montana. Of course, that's where all the good shit is, right? Libby, Montana. Everyone knows that. It already exists in Libby, Montana. And so let's go back to the article. the people of Libby, Montana, population 2,628. By the way, that's 2,627. I heard yesterday a kid ate a Matchbox car. It's pretty tragic. But so 2,627. Shit, I'm kidding. He probably pulled through. I mean, he ate the car, but I think it's going to come out the other end. He'll be all right. Population 2,628 shares something in common with the rest of the developed fucking world. He didn't say fucking, but not their compatriots in the United States. They all, meaning everyone in Libby, all have access to a single-payer Medicare for All system. As part of the Affordable Care Act, the residents of Libby have access to fucking Medicare for All. They were exposed. The reason they got it and no one else did is because they were exposed to hazardous airborne asbestos from a vermiculite mine. Oh, that's my favorite kind of mine. Oh, I love vermiculite. A vermiculite mine owned by the W.R. Grace Company. And they were made eligible for Medicare for free at the discretion of the Social Security Administration and the Department of Health and Human Services. It was codified in Section 1881A of the Social Security Act. The language of the statute refers to any individual subject to, quote, environmental exposure. Though it is well understood at the time to be referencing Libby, but it says that anyone exposed anyone subject to an environmental exposure could get this program, basically. And then the article goes on to say, I realize you probably can't see it that great, so I'll go back to me. Please bring it back to me. So because they were exposed to this, they got Medicare for All. Now, within the thing, as I just said, anyone is subject to environmental exposure. And so then you start to think to yourself, well, okay, so any Americans that are subject to environmental exposure, well, are there others? Are there other Americans that have been subject to environmental exposure? Oh, that's right. We're in a fucking pandemic. Most everybody has been subject to an environmental exposure. Even if you haven't had it, you've been subject to exposure. And if you have had it, that's fucking millions of people, right? Millions of Americans have already been subject to COVID. We don't even know because a lot of people don't have symptoms, so they haven't been tested. So it's even more than we think it is. So you have millions upon millions of Americans that have had COVID, whether they've had symptoms or not. Many of them obviously had an incredibly rough time with COVID-19. So we've all been exposed. And that means Joe Biden on day one could fucking sign something, Section 1881A, and give everyone in this country Medicare for All. Give us health care. And now, ideally, I say, let's do that forever. Let's do that and leave it like that so that everyone continues to have fucking health care. However, if they didn't do that, how about at least doing it until the pandemic's over? At least give everybody whatever it is, the next 6 months, another year, until we can really definitively say this pandemic is done. Give people Medicare for All for that time. He could easily do it. And even if you didn't want to say COVID-19 counts as exposure, you could do it via other exposures, because if you're just about anywhere in America, you've been exposed to some environmental shit, okay? That's how it works nowadays, because corporations don't account for their externalities. Corporations will destroy your life, they'll destroy your air, they'll destroy your water, they'll destroy your ground and your soil and your crops, and they don't give a fuck. So let's just take some of the major ones. Los Angeles, the smog in Los Angeles. Borderline suffocating. They give you air warnings as to how good the air is outside, whether you can breathe that day. Hey, good news, folks. Today's a breathing day. Did you ever think we'd be in that level of dystopian shit show? Let me check on my app. Oh, it's a breathing day. Everyone, take it in. Take it in, folks. Breathe today, because tomorrow, no good. I just looked at it. Yeah, tomorrow, no breathing. So breathe now. And get like double breath now. Save some for tomorrow. Yeah, that's what they're fucking doing in Los Angeles. You got to check the air quality before you go outside. Not just Los Angeles, there's other cities, right? San Francisco with the forest fires. And And okay, so we got Los Angeles, the smog. We got oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico, and so many other places. Right? Oil is environmental exposure. Even though they say they clean it up, they don't fucking clean it up. You can't clean up. You can't clean up oil. All right. You ever see the fucking photos of them putting down the paper towels? Literally, Exxon will put down, Shell and BP put down paper towels like they're cleaning this. Yeah, we got this. We got everyone back up. I got paper towels. They all act like Donald Trump in Puerto Rico. Paper towels, paper towels, paper towels. Boom, paper towels. Nailed it. All right, best better than ever. Got your paper towels. So you can't clean up oil. So that means there's environmental exposure to oil in all these places that have faced oil spills. Fracking, all sorts of environmental chemicals, right? The methane in the water and everything, the flammable water. We've seen videos of that. So you got people's water exposed to that. Look at West Virginia, right? You guys know I do a podcast with Eleanor Goldfield. She has an award-winning documentary called Hard Road of Hope. I don't know why I'm tripping all over my words right now because I'm excited. Hard Road of Hope at hardroadofhope.com. And that explains very clearly all the environmental exposure that goes on in West Virginia, thanks to the mining, the mountaintop removal, the fracking, just endless chemicals pumped into the shale, pumped into the water supplies, pumped into the air. What about New York City? Well, of course, you have the general smog of New York City. You have Brooklyn and Greenpoint, where had the largest oil spill, I think, in America underneath the streets there. I used to live there. And the oil spill was twice or three times the size of the Exxon Valdez oil spill. But because it was underneath the sidewalks, it's fine. It's fine. Well, guess what? Just because you're not touching the oil doesn't mean those fumes aren't still impacting you. There's areas of Greenpoint that they could count. There are like blocks in Greenpoint. Now, this is, if you're in Greenpoint, I don't know if you should worry or not, because this was 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. So you might be okay. But there were areas of Greenpoint where it's like a block had like 36 cases of brain tumors in a block. Environmental exposure. New York City also just Reverend Billy with the Church of Stop Shopping. I know that sounds funny, and it's supposed to sound funny. But if you don't know Reverend Billy, you should definitely look him up. The Church of Stop Shopping. Great videos online. He does amazing performance art, performance protest. I've worked with him many times. Does great stuff. He was down at Occupy with me and so many others back in the days in New York City, but he's still out there, and he and his followers, whatever they call themselves, his group, have been fighting against the spraying of glyphosate, right? Roundup herbicide that we now know is a carcinogen all over public spaces in New York City. They spray that shit everywhere, and it's not just New York City; it's elsewhere too. But they've been fighting against it in New York City, and now finally lawmakers have voted to stop the public spraying of this carcinogen. But there you go, environmental exposure. So I say it is time to hashtag force the executive action to give everybody health care. Force the executive action. Donald Trump did so much shit without going to Congress. Almost nothing that Donald Trump did got passed through Congress. Yet he did a lot, right? No one denies that. Most of it awful, but he did a lot. He moved around money. They didn't approve his border wall. They moved, or at least not enough money. He moved around the money from the Pentagon to the border wall. He did all this shit without Congress. He was just signing one executive action after another for, helping oil companies, helping his business friends. Executive actions nowadays are incredibly powerful. So I'm not saying this is the way it should be. I'm not saying it should all be in the hands of one person, a unitary executive, but I'm saying here we are. We're fucking here. Let's do something with that goddamn ability to sign a document that says everybody gets health care. Section 1881A of the Social Security Act. It shouldn't just be Libby, Montana. How about the fucking rest of us? How about we all get health care rather than bankrupting people? The number one cause of bankruptcy in America. You've heard all the speeches from Bernie Sanders. I don't need to repeat it all, why we need health care in this country. how many lives it's destroyed, even for lives it hasn't destroyed, how many lives it's just made people struggle, how many times it's made people not go to the hospital, even though they were hurt or injured or sick or ill. They didn't go because they were afraid of the bills. They didn't know if they'd walk out the other side owing a hand job to a pimp or whatever the fuck, however the fuck they make you pay when you don't have any money. But people are afraid to just drive by hospitals, afraid they'll get a bill just thrown through the window of their car like a paper airplane or some shit. They tell their fucking kids to duck down as they drive by. They get out, kids, duck down. Don't let the hospital see you. They'll give you a bill. You don't know. They'll charge you $1,000 for looking at them. Just getting a peek. Just a peek. You get a $1,000 bill. So everybody's ducking down as they drive by hospitals. It's a fucked up world that we are the only country without healthcare. So it's time to hashtag force the executive action. And I mean, for something that is so moral and so obvious and so ethical and so needed and so required and so demanded and so approved by Americans, right? What is it? Over 70%? I think it's closer to 80% of Americans support Medicare for all. It's like 90-some% of Democrats support Medicare for all. I mean, so if Biden did this, who's going to be against him? It's just going to be the fucking billionaires that are rich from exploiting our healthcare system. It's going to be the billionaires that are rich from your sickness, from you being ill. And a leaked memo, by the way, from Goldman Sachs a few years back. I've covered it a bunch. It's in my book. I talk about it. This memo from Goldman Sachs to their investors telling them not to invest in creating genetic cures because it meant there would be fewer sick people. Because it's a cure. It's a cure is a one-time thing. It's not ongoing. It's not ongoing income. And so they were basically saying, hey, don't invest in cures because we won't get paid as much. We won't get as rich. It's better to keep people sick. It's better to keep people contagious. That's how our fucking Wall Street works. That's how it works. It wants people sick. It wants people contagious because they make money off of it. So time to hashtag force the executive action. I'm sick of this shit, dicking around, begging Congress. Please, Congress, can you please give us something? Give us the healthcare system of the rest of the developed world. Can you please, like we're a little chimney sweep in fucking Elizabethan times. Please, sir, please, could I please have some healthcare with our little tin cups? Please, Congress, take care of us, will you? And Congress, of course, bought out like always. They're not going to fucking vote for this shit, as they just proved with their vote for Nancy Pelosi. Couldn't even get the progressives. That's what happened in Force the Vote. Couldn't even get the squad, the progressives, to demand a vote for Medicare for all. This wasn't even, we weren't even begging the regular Democrats. People were begging the so-called progressives. Couldn't even get them to treat it like a legitimate debate. Most of them didn't respond, and Ocasio-Cortez called it violence to demand a vote for Medicare for all. So, I'm not saying it'll happen. I get it. Joe Biden's bought out too. I'm not saying this will happen, but you gotta fight for things that don't seem like they're going to happen. So it's time for a goddamn executive action for Medicare for all. Thought I'd cover one more thing before I wrap this up. Thank you guys for sharing this, letting people know. By the way, there is a new redacted tonight. I hope you saw it. The main topic is about Huawei and why the U.S. government secretly despises the largest technology company in the world, Huawei, or one of the largest. And you can get that at leecamp.com. But there will not be a new redacted tonight this week, unfortunately, because a member of the crew got COVID-19. Fucking selfish asshole. And so now we can't tape this week, but we'll be taping next week because, can't go into the studios and all that shit. But yeah, I hate people who are so selfish that they get COVID. But one more topic I wanted to cover, the censorship. We've seen the ongoing censorship, increased censorship against all these platforms, forcing Parler off of the internet, basically, forcing it into non-existence. I hear it may be coming back. But then also banning, they said 70,000 QAnon followers were banned from Twitter. Look, QAnon followers are fucking idiots, but there's no rule you can't be a fucking idiot on Twitter. So unless these 70,000 people are threatening violence against someone, or calling for violence against someone, then being a dummy is not reason to purge someone from. But of course, the larger problem is not the reasoning for purging someone. It's that we have a tiny oligarchy of Silicon Valley that is deciding who gets to say what. And now my videos are, declared false or fake or whatever, just because I'm not agreeing with corporate America, or I'm pressing for, healthcare for everyone. That kind of thing does not fit with corporate America. So it's labeled dangerous thoughts coming your way right now. Watch out. Anyway, I wanted to show you yet another step in the censorship. I mean, it's ongoing. There's a million examples. But let's see. I will share this other tweet with you from Jordan Sheridan, Status Coup. He has a platform called, or outlet called Status Coup. So this is my tweet about what he said. So YouTube and other big tech platforms are quite literally making journalism impossible. And here is Jordan's tweet about his. So Status Coup is the name of his outlet. And he says, now YouTube just removed Status Coup and John Farina's live stream reporting from a peaceful Virginia gun rights rally because, quote, we think it violates our firearms policy. How? And then Jordan says, how are journalists supposed to chronicle history if YouTube and others are outlawing it? Quite literally, you can't even go and report on a gun rally, as if you have to pretend as if it doesn't exist, as if the gun rally didn't exist. I'm not saying you got to say wonderful things about it. It's not like you got to go there and be like, it's not like they're only purging things. Not that this would be okay, but it's not like they're only purging things where it's like, everyone get a gun. They're purging things of just someone reporting that a gun rally happened. I mean, literally, how can you have journalism in this fucking, with these rules, which are whatever rules they want? Another video that I don't have the screenshot, but another video that I had up was talking about ivermectin, the medication that seems very effective for treatment of COVID-19. A well-known doctor spoke to the Senate during a Senate hearing and begged them to use ivermectin, or to put out a call to begin using ivermectin to help people that are facing COVID-19, because he said in his trials it had been working incredibly well, but using ivermectin doesn't make a lot of money for drug companies, for big pharma. So they're not willing to do the follow-up testing to finally admit that ivermectin is working. This is nothing I've said. I'm saying I'm reporting to you what that doctor said. So nothing I've said is false. Even if they were to do research, and after extensive trials, they decide that doctor was wrong, that is still not making my reporting false. I have correctly just reported to you what this doctor said to the Senate. And that's what my video was relaying. And anyway, someone showed me a screenshot where if you try and share that video on Facebook now, and I don't know when this began, I don't know if it was right after it went up or not, but when you try and share that video on Facebook now, it says that you're sharing false information that could be dangerous. Me reporting on what a doctor said in front of the Senate is sharing information that could be dangerous. Like, there is no way to have independent journalism under these guidelines or rules or whatever you want to call them. This fucking Orwellian fucking thought crime world. you can't even say these things, or they just not only put a warning across it, but most of the time they won't let you share them, or they'll tell you it's being shared and they're just lying to you. You'll see a share button when you put it up, but then the other people that go there don't see the share button. It's that type of thing. All my stuff's kind of shadow banned on Facebook anyway, but it's just making journalism utterly impossible. Any level of it. All Jordan Sheridan did there, or his reporter did there, was show up to a gun rally in Virginia and say, here's what's happening. And that's illegal now, according to YouTube. Not illegal, but you know what I mean. YouTube illegal. Can't put it up there. Might cause a problem for other people to realize that a rally took place today. It's so fucked. Even if you were to agree, even if your political viewpoints don't align with align with the ones that they're allowing. So you're like, oh, I like this. They're allowing NPR, but they're not allowing QAnon. Great. I'm down with that. Even if you were down with that for a minute, guess what? It's not always going to be like that. Eventually, guess who's going to get to the top of these Silicon Valley fucking places? Someone you don't like. And I said this before Donald Trump was president. I said, if you give the president all these powers, eventually you're going to get an asshole in there. Even if you liked Obama. And I criticized Obama as much as anyone. But I was speaking to the people that liked him. I was like, look, Obama's in office right now. Even if you like him, even if you're just like, yay, and you have a poster of him wearing a G-string or something, and you're like, oh, I'm so into Obama. What's going to happen when a dictator, an awful human being, a piece of shit gets into office? He's going to have the same, he or she's going to have the same powers. And I'm saying the same thing. And sure enough, Trump was next. And now I'm saying the same thing about Silicon Valley, just fucking these oligarchs running the show, deciding what you can and can't hear. It's pretty fucked. So we got to build up the alternatives. Okay, guys, that's your moment of clarity for today. Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for letting people know about this. I do these every single weekday, except sometimes. And they're at leecamp.com. Keep fighting.